Good evening and welcome to Doc and Soc. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. Mississippi, my hometown, a state with less than 3 million people. And I keep emphasizing that 40% plus of the folk in Mississippi look like me. They are African Americans. Another 5% are Hispanics. And so you can see the browning of Mississippi is causing some great concern, as is the browning of America. We're going to talk about the border issues this evening. We're going to talk about exactly what does it mean to have that many Latinos in Texas and Arizona and other states of that nature. Now, if you're watching us tonight on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family. Send us stars. We need your support. We're growing each and every day on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, X, and our very own website. But we need you to send us stars and share this program with your friends and family. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, then subscribe to the program. Our numbers are growing organically. We have a loyal fan base. Our community is growing. And so we need you to continue supporting us there on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and you see all of our playlists. So if you want to watch all of the episodes of Doc and Soc, you can choose to do so. Or you can look at some of the other great shows, like The Hurt Is the Same. You know, the show that I enjoyed last evening was absolutely phenomenal. And so we have a lot to offer on YouTube. But go on and subscribe to our channel there. We need your support. Now, if you're watching us on our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, you'll know that we're a little bit different. We're not a page. We are, in fact, a network. This is We Believe Digital Network. On that website, you can choose the playlist of all of the different artists and all the authors that you want to watch right there on our very own website. But if you scroll down a little bit lower on that website, you'll find that we have We Believe Internet Radio, WBLV radio station right here in Jackson, Mississippi, playing some of the best music in the world. And we have been petitioned by our listeners to increase our offering of gospel music. So that's something that you will see coming in the very, very near future. We want to talk about all of the great quartet singers that have just come out of Mississippi. And of course, you know, we always give reference to the mighty Clouds of Joy. You know, what a group, what a group, what a group. And so, you know, you can find that on WBLV Radio. Also on Wednesdays and Friday night, I want to give a shout out to the best DJ in the land, HT3. I miss giving a shout out to his lovely wife on Valentine's Day. He told me that he was doing it up right, that he had steaks on the grill, that he had the flowers and candy in the house. And I hope Miss HT3 had a great day out there, because her husband certainly was planning a lot. And then if you want to listen to us during the day, we have Boogie from Miami, Florida, playing some of the best soft soul that you ever want to hear. And also Randy Wildman Brown, one of the great DJs of all time. So here at We Believe Digital, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to offer, and we need your support. So share this program with friends and family. Subscribe, send us stars, hit the donate button, do all of the usual things. Now we're going to get right into our program, but let me just introduce my co-host here once again. I always say that he is probably one of the most dangerous men in America. And why do I always say that? Because he was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta. You know, the Mississippi Delta represents the poorest region probably in the world. And you have to give that some thought. Just let that sink in for a minute. The Mississippi Delta, the 2nd Congressional District, represents one of the poorest regions in the country. And that's where this young man had the privilege of being born. And like Moses, somebody must have put him in a basket and set him afloat in the river because he escaped. And he's here tonight as the co-host of Doc and Soc, and he's one of the most renowned speakers in the entire country. Doc, how have you been?
Well, I've been doing fine, sir. But let me straighten you out about
Straighten me out.
You were saying that I was born on the plantation in the Delta. Exactly right. Then we moved down to Hinds County and lived on the plantation for 17 years.
Whoa.
But now the good part about it, that was a blessing, believe it or not. Because as of some years past, we bought some of that plantation. We owned about 100 acres of it, several of the Hendersons, and that's good news. That's progress.
You were able to buy land back at that time?
Buy the plantation.
Who did you buy it from?
From our distant relatives.
Your distant white relatives?
That's right.
The plantation master?
That's right.
He saw favor in you and decided to sell you some land?
He sold it to my grandfather and my father.
Wow.
And then I bought some from my father.
Why is it important to own land?
That's the most important piece of property one can get. Land, and the best land is rural land. And the next best land right now is inner city property. That is going to be some of the most expensive property in America in the next 5 to 20 years. Oh. Anyone that owns land or property in the inner city, due to gentrification, going to be millionaires if they own 10 or 15 acres or 30 or 40 houses, and they're all around the same area, I would say in the same district. It's going to be amazing. But now it's going to be difficult for them to keep it because the government is going to do everything they can to take it through legislation and eminent domain. And of course, they're not going to be prepared to take it all because some of these people are going to fight them. They are going to put a stay on those executive orders that the mayors and the governors are going to be putting forth, and they are going to go to court. And some going to win, some going to lose. But that's why I always tell people, it doesn't make any difference where you're from, what situation you were born in or under. All you got to do is have an action plan for success and organize your resources, your talents. And you buy that old place that used to have you in slavery. Buy that old hotel that wouldn't even let you go in and get a room. Buy that hospital that would put you down in the basement and wouldn't even let your black doctor come and see you. Or create one yourself. That's what I was taught after I left that plantation.
Well, were all blacks taught the same thing?
No. A lot of the blacks were taught nothing along those lines other than I was born on the plantation, your father was born on the plantation, you're the third generation, you just stay around here and we're going to be looked after. Those white folks are good to us. They give us everything we need, and we don't even have to worry about going to the military. If we don't want to go to the military, our landlord is on the Board of Appeals. We call it a draft board, and if we don't want to go and fight in the wars, we don't have to do that.
Now, Doc, there's a difference in the man or woman that owns land. Is something different about a landowner's self-esteem, his pride, and his understanding of his worth and value that you don't get from any place else.
That's a fact. Matter of fact, you sleep better. You always tell yourself, if something happened, I got something I can lease or rent. That's very important to have something that you can make some money on while you are sleeping, or if you have to change jobs, or if you have to just stop working altogether and get in a training institution for 3 or 4 years and live on $5 a day. I did that once. $5 a day. And that was food, clothing, and shelter.
$5 a day.
That's right. When I left Mississippi and moved to a certain state.
Now, Doc, let's talk about $5 a day. Let's talk a little bit about the black experience. Being an African American in the state of Mississippi brings about a different set of understanding and situations that you've encountered. But you tell me that even going back to the beginning of time, and we have to talk about history because history is not being taught anywhere else. You're telling me that at one point in time there were more African Americans in Mississippi than there were Europeans.
For 70 years, from 1830 to about 1940.
Wow.
Now, right during the Depression, blacks started leaving, but they left by the thousands in the 40s.
And this is the late 30s.
That's right, in the 40s. That's when they had the Depression. 1929, all through the 30s, things started getting a little better in 1938. And of course, the war started and they had a lot of need to give jobs to people because a lot of the white folks were going into the military. So they opened up some of the manufacturing units in the North, the West, and other places. Blacks and females and white females started getting jobs in those places. And the white males, were drafted and the others joined the military, all branches. But that didn't last too long, about 5 to 6 years. They were back. They took all those jobs, in most cases, those that they wanted. The women went back home and started being wives again. The black folks went back to the ghetto because they lost their jobs too, and they hustled around in those segregated mainline areas and just start making it any way they could.
Well, now I guess that's what they had to do. Now let's talk about the Depression a little bit. Now I recall that they would pass out commodities that, buses would come by and give folk commodities. Now, we weren't able to get any of the commodity, the dry powdered milk and the cheese, because they say that my daddy didn't qualify. I think they were just being mean because he was an independent black man. He couldn't get into the cheese. But they actually had to pass out, and our children don't know this, and some of our adults don't even know it. It was so hard in Mississippi that they had to pass out household to household powdered milk and commodity cheese. That's the old hook cheese that we used to call it, and went to door to door passing it out to keep people from starving.
Well, that is about correct, I tell you. And the good part about it, or some now would say it's the bad part, there were a lot of poor white folks in Mississippi at the time that was getting that stuff. But the thing is, as in everything else, they had segregated distribution centers. And the poor whites got different food than the black folks. Even today, they are giving out food to senior citizens. A lot of poor, black and white. And today, the rural folks in some of the counties in Mississippi have different food that they receive from the counties than some of the other areas in the state.
Wow. Why would it be different food?
Well, because of the old pattern of segregation. To give you an example, from my information, in some of the boxes you might have some cookies. In other parts of the county, you have cake, real nice chocolate, caramel cakes and others that's cut. You have a variety of canned goods. You have different meats. You have a real chicken in some. And many of the poor blacks get beans, crackers, other things they don't want. And that's why so many blacks are physically sick. Because if you look at the stats, you'll find that most blacks in the South and the nation are overweight. 2/3 of the black folks are overweight in America. Now, a lot of people don't know it, and they don't want to believe me. Do the research, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's because of many reasons: our lack of resources, the ability not to have the money to buy real food. We also have another problem with eating anything we could find. We have these food deserts, so you eat a lot of potato chips and drink a lot of tea and water and all kinds of drinks, and just eat a lot of candy, give the same to your babies, and they are born ill-formed, and they have mental problems when they go to school. They put them on pills and all kind of medicine, put them in special education or no education, and they double miseducate them. And then you expect those young people to be good citizens. Hell, how can they be a good citizen when they can't even spell citizen? They have difficult lives to deal with. So
we're going to get off of Mississippi in just a minute, because Mississippi is struggling. Every day we're in the news by doing something stupid. Every day we are proclaiming that we are divided and that we have no future, no hope in our great state. I was listening at the governor's press conference last week, where he is now brought into the city of Jackson, this conglomerate of law enforcement officers who he's said that there will be no crime in Jackson. Now, I was watching the show last night with Chantel Johnson on The Hurt Is the Same, and she was proclaiming that she supported the governor in all of his actions, because she said that when her son got killed, the only somebody that was there for her was the white folk, and none of the black people showed up. So she supports this new governing body that's in place in our city. Now, they're going to eradicate crime, Doc. What would you tell your black boys and girls? How are they going to survive during this surge that the governor is enforcing in the state of Mississippi?
Well, I'm going to tell them, as I've always told them, when you have an attack on criminal activity in certain communities, and the parents need to know, they better start saving some money so they can get some of those kids on bail, and they better start saving some money so they can get them a lawyer and not depend on these public offenders. That these lawyers that have 200 cases, because their sons and daughters not going to ever get out of prison, and they are not going to do anything to what I call attack the causes of criminal activity: poverty, racism, miseducation. And then the problem is also magnified by the fact that since a lot of poor people have not had the opportunity to explore outside of their environments, they don't know what's available. They don't know about the educational opportunities in Mississippi. Great educational opportunities. Those that have finished high school don't know anything about the National Guard, the Army Reserve. They say that's not for me. But when I came along, I didn't want to join the military either. But I did get that notice, and I reluctantly went on and joined because I couldn't go to Canada. First of all, I didn't have the money to get there, didn't have no support at all, so I had to go and ask for some favor at the draft board. Wanted to talk to some people. You know, I told you this before. A little old girl about 19 or 20 told me, "You ain't gonna talk to nobody, boy. You're gonna go and serve your country." Now, that was in 1967. And I had my little bag already packed because I expected not to get any favor from her, because she was in a little office by herself, and I didn't figure that I could make it in the war, but I knew I could make it in Parchment if I had done something to her. I just waggled my butt on down North State Street and went to the induction center.
Now, Doc, 19-year-old white girl called you a boy?
That's right.
Wonder why would she do that?
Well, her mother and her father, her grandfather, her grandmother, and custom told her that I was insignificant. and that she was superior to me and other black people and poor people in her area, or what I call in her frame. And she had the idea that she was significant. She had a little job, probably making at the time about $2.25 an hour. She wasn't high class. She probably was a 10th grade dropout, and she had power. At that time, I didn't have any.
You were under the control of a 19-year-old.
That's right. People don't like to talk about those things. But that taught me that I'm going to have to make some changes for myself first, my family second, and then do some things for the community. And I said, I must learn how to survive this war so I can get back to Mississippi. And I learned to lay low and shoot straight, shoot everything that I would see move, or at least shoot in that direction, and I was able to get out of there.
You escaped death in Vietnam.
That's right.
Now, Doc, now we know that times were hard, but times were even harder on the blacks that came over here on the ship. I heard someone say the other day that not only did the migration call for blacks to come over on the ship, but there was a great following of the sharks following the boats and the ships. And they said that the sharks were following the ships because they kept throwing people overboard, and the sharks would be feasting, would be eating them. And then they said that it was so many people thrown over until the sharks couldn't even handle it all.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. You got to understand that animals are smart. They are much smarter than human beings. Look at the sharks, as you just mentioned. They knew how to follow those ships until they start jumping off the ship, if they got a chance to do it, or until they start dying down in the hold and they would throw them over. And they would make that signal. I saw a show like this on TV some time ago, and hundreds of sharks would just show up out of nowhere. It is just like a buzzard sitting up in a tree, and there's a cow that's almost dead. They're going to jump out of that tree, go down to that cow or that deer or whatever, and peck them a little bit, and go back up there and sit in the tree real high. And eventually he's going to go down, he find the animal is dead, and in 10 minutes, buzzards going to be coming from everywhere. And that's the way human beings are. When they see that you are down and they have a little power over you, they're going to do everything they can to destroy you when they put the screws on you.
They're going to come peck you a little bit. They're going to test you out.
That's right. And then they're going to send the government, the court systems, the military, the police, and then their friends that support them to do you in. They did this for at least from 1962 to the I'd say about 75.
Now,
Treated
why?
black folks like a dog. We allowed that to happen to us in demonstratings and all kind of sit-ins. Just caught real hell. People putting hot coffee down your neck, beating your cousin you have called, playing the dozens with you. And you were taught not to do anything about it, but just sit there and pray and hope they don't kill you.
Now, Doc, we were told as young boys in Mississippi, we knew, our parents knew, that every time we left home, we were subject not to return.
That's a fact.
They knew that, and so they tried to give you some instructions on how to survive. Now, back in those times, we were not allowed to look a white man in his eyes. We were not allowed to walk on the same sidewalk. If we were approaching him, we had to get off the sidewalk so that they could come back. We were not allowed to go to any of the movies or the events that they had. We had separate books. All our books were hand-me-down. Our schools were hand-me-downs. And I went to Velma Jackson, and it was a school in Camden, Mississippi, that it was a hand-me-down school.
All black schools were like that. And when I say all, I mean 99.9%, especially the public schools. Even though there were a few public schools that had an appearance of being a real school, but it was a shell. Didn't have anything in it, no air conditioning. Many of them didn't have running water. I went to school for 8 years, no running water, no heating system, no indoors toilets, of course. Everything was outdoors. You had to go and get your water on the outside, your toilet on the outside. You didn't have a playground. You just cut a bush or two down here and played some basketball out there without a court, and a little baseball, a little wrestling, and horseshoe and stuff like that, and go back to class.
Now, Doc, we survived all that.
Of course.
We survived those that survived the boat ride, that didn't get thrown overboard, didn't get eaten by the sharks. We survived all of that, and we have come to a position as of today when we are probably more vulnerable than we were in the days of slavery.
Of course. And many people, Mr. Soc, going to tell you, no, we're doing much better. Black people throughout the world they are worse off today. I mean, I believe it's the 15th of February, 2024, than they were the 15th of February, 2004, or 2064.
We're worse off today than we were then.
That's exactly right. Economically, politically, and leadership-wise. We have no enclaves of white leadership, of black leadership anymore in most places in America, north, south, east, or west. We're being gradually taken over by the leaders in the Republican and Democrat parties. The Republicans are doing everything they can to debase the black and poor folks. The Democrats are doing everything they can to cause blacks and poor to disappear. They are allowing all this gentrification to happen. And when all that happens, I tell you and been telling others for the last few years now, that's going to get worse, because in just a few years, and every time I say this, I get a lot of negative feedback. In just a few years, there's not going to be a place for black people in America as it is today, because they are going to be relocated because they cannot afford to lease or buy in those areas, nor attend the schools where they're regentrified. For instance, they have been giving people in Jackson, Mississippi, for the last 45 years, millions of dollars to rehab Farish Street. In a few years, that's going to be a new area with all kinds of private schools in that areas, high-rise apartment, condos, condominiums, and all kinds of businesses where you're not going to be able to eat because you're not going to have money to pay for those $15 sandwiches. Live in those apartments that's going to cost $3,000 a month plus utilities. You're not going to be able to send your child to that private school downtown Jackson because they're not going to have any public schools in those areas they regentrify. They're going to call them charter schools. And you're going to have to test your child in there to become a student. And then once you get him in there, you're going to have to pay money on a regular basis for fundraisers and others to keep him there. But that's just only going to be the few that's not on the reservation.
Well, what's going to happen with Pookie?
Pookie going to be in urban and rural reservation, which I call the urban and rural ghetto, similar to an Indian reservation. No jobs, hard police force. The judges going to be tough on them, and many of them are going to be killing each other until they are put in jail and prison.
Now,
and you're going to have more and more black people committing suicide, and more females are going to be taken over, and they're going to be worse than the males because the males are going to be dependent on the females for survival, because history shows that a female can get a job when a black male can't. And
Now-
these black females are so good, they will support the black male even if they have to work 2 jobs, and he is at home not even taking care of the children.
Now, Doc, we are up against a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some trends that we see taking place that's got this country on edge. We're going to talk about this Donald Trump, former President Trump's position, and Liz Cheney's position, who says that if Trump is elected president, he will never leave office again. And I want to know from you, how in the world could that be possible? But before we get into that, we're going to take a break. We're going to go to this commercial. Y'all stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Welcome back to Doc and Soc. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to get right back in our program, but you guys out there know what to do. To all our friends in Uganda, all of our friends over in Rome, all of our friends in London and Nigeria, Canada, we are watching the numbers. We know that you are viewing and you're watching this program. We appreciate your support. We get more viewers outside of the U.S. than we do in the U.S. And that's a testament to the quality of the content that comes on this particular network. So we appreciate that. So if you're on Facebook, you know to go on and share with your friends and family. Send us stars on YouTube. Subscribe to the program. WeBelieveDigital.com. Hit the donate button. Scroll down. Listen to the internet radio station WBLV. Now we're going to get right back in our program. Now, Doc, there are 65 million Hispanics in America, and 25 states have sent their National Guards to the border in defiance of President Biden's orders. It seems as if we could be headed to a civil war.
Well, it does appear that way, but that's not going to happen. Not this soon, not over the immigration issue. That's just what we call fake news and fake appearances. All the people doing in these states where they are fighting about the immigrants, they are doing that as a power move to keep their jobs as members in the legislature, governorships. They want another 4 years. Some can do 8 years. Some going to be able to do 8 years, stay out 4 years, and come back. And all of that is just a show, what I call, of power. They care nothing about the immigrants. They don't want them. They won't do anything about it. They could curtail their problem within a short period of time. One thing that can happen, and this has happened all over the world from time to time, if a nation does not want the people to come to their area and become citizens, since they are always funding the people, those nations that have the funds, they fund all the nations. The United States send more money to Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Latin America than they spend on the poor folks. And they can have that money spent in Mexico, Honduras, and other areas, and tell those leaders, just have this meeting with my minister, tell me where your problems are, and we're going to send advisors and aides over there and help you solve your problem, like we did in Japan after World War II. You know, they went and bombed Japan almost to the death with those atomic bombs. They didn't want to take the country. They sent a general over there to rule for a few years, and they retrained and renewed and re-educated the Japanese and say, now we're going to let you boys take over Japan, but you cannot have a strong military, and we're going to leave you after a while. And that's exactly what they did. So they're not going to ever worry about Japan attacking America anymore. They're not going to happen.
America rebuilt Japan?
Rebuild Japan, train them well, and say we're going to turn it back over to you, but just be aware you're not going to have a strong military. We're going to protect you militarily.
So did America rebuild Mississippi?
No one ever cared about Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, New York City, Oklahoma, or anywhere where a lot of poor blacks or what we call Native Americans lived. Those areas have never been rebuilt other than where the blacks would get in a little part of the country and take over a county or two and build a little so-called black town. And then when they were prosperous, they were either run out of town or they were burned down or bombed or burned to the ground.
You're talking about Black Wall Street?
I'm talking about all the little black towns in Florida, and Alabama, Oklahoma, all over the United States, in most of the southern states. They had little towns and communities where blacks had hotels, movie theaters, hospitals, banks, credit unions, all kinds of things, even during my time. All of that is gone today. You can't find not one significant black hotel that's owned by blacks of any significance in the state of Mississippi. There might be one on the coast. I don't know of not one in Jackson, where we have the highest population, where you have a 100% owned black hotel of any significance.
Now, when you and I came along, we had several black
Of course,
hotels.
I knew of 5 at least, right in the city of Jackson.
And the Summers Hotel was, the premier place for blacks to go when they were traveling in the South. And Mr. Summers built that right there on, I believe that's Pearl.
Yeah, in that area.
In that area right there.
He got rich there, sent his kids to medical school and all kind of things.
Had the subway, underground subway lounge.
That's right. Had entertainers coming from all over the United States. They were part of that chitlin circuit. And you had cheap rooms. You could get a room for about $2 an hour, and it went up to $3 an hour for 2 hours. You can get it for $3 for 2 hours. So if you need to rest yourself, you can run in there and drink a little bit, listen to some good music, take a rest, and go back home or down in the country somewhere and say you've been to Jackson, Mississippi and had a so-called good time.
And you did, but now there are no black-owned hotels, and the Indians own all of the little pay-by-the-hour hotels that and there are plenty of those.
Yeah,
I mean, every Indian that I've met so far is named Patel. They all have the one last name, and I guess that's by design, so that you really can't track how many of them are really in the country. And so they rule the hotel industry, and the convenience store industry is ruled by Indians.
Well, that's because we allow them to do that. Black people just always say other stuff better than my stuff. But when you were a young man, there were a lot of black that had grocery stores, a few drug stores here and there. In the Delta even, they had a famous NAACP guy that had a pharmacy up there. His name was
Aaron Henry.
Aaron Henry. And others had hotels and movie theaters and all kind of clubs that were making big money during those times. Made a lot of millionaires.
It made a lot of millionaires for white folk, but it didn't make no millionaires for black folk. You see, all of these businesses that went on to become national chains emanated in the black community. The Jewish community was inside of the black community, like the Indian community is inside the black community now. I recall when the largest grocery chain in the state of Mississippi was called Jitney Jungle.
That's right. That's right.
I wondered a long time, why would they name it Jitney Jungle? And then I got to thinking about it, and I looked at where it was. It was in the belly of the black community.
That's right. And they had all kind of cheap food, old food, as they do in a lot of these convenience stores. You might find that they cook a chicken, and if they don't sell it today, tomorrow, or the next day, if they don't sell it the third day, they put it in some gravy and make a sandwich out of it and sell it on the fifth day. And we allow that to happen all over America.
All over America.
When we have the ability to start convenience stores through our community organizations and churches, most of the big churches can have a chain of convenience stores and anything else they want. They have the resources to do it, but they don't have enough leadership and wisdom to know how to finance those things. The bank's not going to give it to them. If I were a big banker and I was a millionaire, I wouldn't go and give loans to people that's going to put me out of business. And since I know that, the church leaders, especially those big-time presidents of these big denominations that have churches in America, Africa, Asia, and Middle East, and everywhere else, ought to see that we ought to start our own banks. Every big black denomination in America ought to have 5 or 10 banks so they can finance the property and businesses that their members want to get involved in. They can have their own hotels, their own golf courses. Well, you don't have to boycott anyone else. You don't have to talk about boycotting. Just buy your own stuff. And then you'll find that these people that own all the hair salons, the toenail shops, the hotels and others will start hiring black folks. You cannot find a black person at any of these convenience stores that I've seen in the 30 states that I've visited where they have a full-time black person that's making benefits. You know, a lot of them part-time, some are cleaning up, and they pay them through food and stuff. And we allow it to happen. And I'm not talking about boycotting anybody. You don't have to boycott if you have your own. And if you have good leadership that's going to set up businesses with their own funds and finance them, you will get more respect as a human being if you do that.
Doc, let's talk about Liz Cheney's statement that if the Trumpster, former President Trump, is elected president of the United States, that he will never leave office again.
Well, now, a lot of people don't like to hear that, Mr. Socrates, and a lot of them don't believe it, but it can happen. It has happened all over the world, throughout the history of the world. And since we don't have a democracy in anywhere I know of, we have a republic here, where we have the 3%ers ruling America and most parts of the world. You know, the super rich and their supporters. They can do anything they want. If any president anywhere gets in office, there are 4 or 5 ways that he or she will never get out if they want to do it. One, they can have the Congress to pass a resolution and call it an emergency resolution and create an emergency and allow the president to stay another 2 or 3 or 4 years. They can start a war somewhere and say that's an emergency. The current president at the time can pass executive order because he wants to stay in a continuous management position. The other issue that can take it, the Congress and the presidents can get together, nationalize the court system, the police system, and the National Guard, and make all those federal entities. And there's nothing the citizens can do because only 538 people in America elect a president. A lot of people don't like to hear it, and that's true. Think about it, a so-called democracy, and only 538 people elect the president, and they call that the Electoral College. Popular vote, is not even necessary. I don't see why they run around hollering and raising hell about the popular vote. All you do is select the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, get their friends to be on the Electoral College. They tell them who to vote for. And if the president gets in office, and he wants to take over the Electoral College, all they have to do on the state level is decide who they're going to put in those positions. They are appointed positions. They're usually strong Republicans or Democrats that's financing the party and executives. And they can decide before election who's going to be the president.
Well, let's talk about it for a minute. Let's just say, first of all, let me ask the question. Can Trump beat Biden in the upcoming election?
He can and he will if he is not put in a position where he has a felony lodged against him by the Democrats. They are doing everything they can to get this man indicted with a felony so he won't be able to run the office. I was just reading today, they want to have a trial real soon. I believe it's in New York or somewhere. And they're going to try to create a felony situation. And, of course, the jury going to be stacked against it. And I don't even support neither one of them. I don't support Trump nor Biden.
Okay, well, let's stay here for a minute. Now, if he doesn't get a felony charge, you're saying that he will beat Biden and become the next president of the United States.
I guarantee you.
You guarantee me. Now, there are some that say that Biden would fare better if he changed his vice president, Kamala Harris. What's your thought on our vice president?
Well, the vice president doesn't have a lot of support, nor does the president. So now you're going to have to find somebody that has at least a 55 or 60% support in a political party to be running as an assistant for that presidential position, as vice president. Now, the vice president currently does not have that kind of support. The president doesn't have it. He's probably in the 40s. She's around that area. They don't have 51+% of popular support. So it'd be very difficult. But then you got to think if he does change her and put a Caucasian in, he's going to lose votes. If he puts a black male, he'll probably be stabilized. But if he puts a white female as vice president, he's definitely going to lose then.
Why you think the country opposes white female leadership?
No, they don't oppose it, but they are going to find that a lot of blacks then don't move on to the Republican Party. We just talked about it the other day, how increasingly every 4 years you have more and more blacks going to the Republican Party. We both know a lot of them, but people don't talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it. There are going to be so many black people voting Republicans. I went to a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. And you'll be surprised how many people complaining about what the Democrats are doing. And they said tonight, I'm voting for somebody else this time.
Wow.
Country folks now. I'm talking about country folks.
I believe we're going to have a major change in our elected officials across this country, in the state of Mississippi, in Jackson in particular. Now, there's the name Michelle Obama that floats every once in a while. Could she stabilize the Democratic Party?
She probably could, but that woman is not stupid. You couldn't pay her to run for president. And don't even be talking about that other one that you all been talking about for the last 8 or 10 years, or for Winfrey. She doesn't want to be president. Those ladies don't want to catch all that hell. They both of them are millionaires or billionaires. Why would they want to have all that trouble? They are in their later years, in their early 60s or late 50s.
Well, it doesn't matter if you want to make the country better, the world better.
They don't want to make the country better.
Well, why did Bloomberg want to be president?
Well, because that'll consolidate his power in America and the world. The man is already a billionaire. When you get a lot of money, or a lot of prestige and a lot of power, you want more. You want to control everything you can.
Is he a part of the Jewish cartel?
Of course he is.
How did the Jews become so entrenched in control of the finances of the world?
Because we done the research on it, because They believe in what I've been talking about for years. They believe in forming compacts with themselves. They believe in pooling their resources. They believe in training their own leaders. They believe in dominating in areas and facilities where they are in control. And they believe in placing their people in strategic positions where they can do two things: control the money and control the personnel. When you can determine how the money is going to be spent, how it's going to be spent, and who can get it or who will get it, and then determine what the policy is going to be ongoing for the next 3, 5, or 10 years in your area of activity where you are the dominant person: education, finance, government policies, and even science and industrialization. Ideas happen to change when you have those areas. You will determine who is going to vote, who is not going to be voting, what state is going to be changed from one party to another, because you have these political action committees that will bombard the state with millions and millions of dollars, and people will show up and run for office you never heard before, and they will win. You have to enjoy your people that's going to give you assistance, your election commissions, the computer people that build your computers, don't track the vote and things like that. Have your election commission people to mess around with things and have problems there where you can't go and vote on time, or
you think all that's by design?
Of course. Hell, you can't make a mistake like that. Most of these people in Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, New York City, most of the election officials are college graduates.
Wow.
Or at least attended college.
So who controls the state of Mississippi?
The governor and the Republican Party and his industrial friend.
Okay, are the Jews controlling Mississippi's economy like they do the rest of the world, or they don't care about Mississippi?
Some of the greatest Republicans in Mississippi are Jewish. And those that are not Republicans work together with the Republicans. That's what they're supposed to do. Black folks ought to be doing the same thing. You don't let a party determine your power base. If you are a Democrat and you have a black Republican in power, in a position of responsibility, it would be in your best interest to support that person. You don't have to go and proclaim and declare that you're supporting him or her. You just endorse what they do, support what they do, secretly and quietly, and go on and get what you deserve.
Now, there are many folk that said that former Governor Haley Barbour was the strongest person in the state of Mississippi when it comes to influence and legislation.
Of course.
There are a lot that believe that he still has his thumb on the prize and that he's controlling the wheel.
Well, that's what most people say, and if you look at his position in America and the world, you'll find that's probably true. The man has been rich for years. He's been politically involved for the last 50 years, even while the Democrats were in office. He and his boys were planning to take over the state politically. He owns a lot of property. He has an international consulting lobbying firm, so he has international influence. And he done hired a lot of old retired and senators and members of the House and business people as lobbyists and consultants. So when he calls the governor, the members of the legislature, he doesn't have to tell them what to do. His job is just to make a recommendation. It's like the people that I told you they put on the Supreme Court. The people are interviewed by the president. The president will give them a list and say, you know your job, but now I can't tell you what to do. I talked about this a few weeks ago. But these are the 6 issues you're going to have to call me on before you make a decision. And you think that Supreme Court justice is not going to do it?
Doc, we're up against a deadline. We run out of time. Time just flies, and we have so much more to talk about, but we're not going to be able to get to it all this evening. When we come back tomorrow, though, we're going to talk about local elections. I understand that the mayor of the great city of Jackson has announced that he's running for re-election. I understand that several other people have announced.
Which he should. He should run. Others should run. They ought to have some females in Jackson running for mayor. You need a lot of different personalities with different experiences and power bases to run for any position in a city or county.
Well, tomorrow night we're going to get into it. I know your good friend Kim Wade, who is one of the most conservative black people I've ever met in my life, says he's going to run.
I hope he does. That'll generate a very strong communication network for all over the world. Mississippi will get a lot of publicity. According to my information, Kim Wade is a conservative. He's very smart. He is a Morehouse graduate. He's not stupid. He knows about planning. He has a lot of discipline. The mayor is similar, very smart, lawyer, has a lot of administrative experience, but he can't get his city council under control. Anytime you got to fight in public with the people who are supposed to support your agenda, that's bad leadership. So you got to learn how to find something out on them and hold them in cake, or have them voted out of office by getting you some insurgents to put somebody against them and vote them out of the position they're in.
Doctor, the buzzer is going off. Even on your phone, it's going off, which means it's absolute time for us to get out of here this evening. We'll deal with all this tomorrow. Any parting shouts?
Well, I just want to let the folks know today we've just been talking about problems. Now, tomorrow we will be talking about similar problems, but we're going to put a lot of emphasis on solutions, things that can impact your lives starting in 30, 60, or 90 days. And then if you don't do these things, I'm going to show and have evidence to tell you and show you that if you don't do these things we're recommended, you have until December the 31st, 2029, and you will be totally insignificant as a citizen in America, and you won't even like yourself if you don't pool your resources, train your own leaders, and select people that can rule in a fair manner and put them in positions of responsibility. You've got to control the area where you are in the majority of black folks, any precinct, any county, any city.
We hope you've enjoyed this program. You know, we talked about a lot of things that are important. These are the conversations that are going on in everybody's household, at the breakfast table, at the dinner table. These are the kinds of things that are being discussed. And we try to bring you a little information from a historical perspective. For example, Doc said that at one point in time, America had 2 presidents. A lot of us really never knew that. How is it possible to have had 2 presidents at the same time? And so we talk about a lot of things that are important to you. Now, tomorrow night, we're going to deal with a lot of local issues, and we're going to tell you about the people who are saying that they are going to be running to make a difference, to make changes in our community. As always, we make a plea for blacks to come back home, come to the South. Come back home. We need your leadership. We need your experience. And we need you to come in here so that we can change the trajectory that we're currently on. And that is a quick slide downward that we're experiencing. So we got to find a way to stop that.
And let me just add something.
Yes, sir.
I want you folks, when you all leave New York City, California, Oklahoma, Texas, and not Texas, but Chicago specifically, and some of those other areas, those of you that's almost retired, retiree or soon, move back to Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, buy some land anywhere you can. Make sure you have your homeland taken care of where your pops and moms are. Get wills and powers of attorney, pay the taxes, and get your kids trained, put some discipline in the household, and start changing your life in 30, 60, or 90 days. Come on back to Mississippi. That's where you need to be.
You heard it. Until tomorrow evening, stay safe and good night.